the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Yeah, Karoline Leavitt was actually going to go home because she's pregnant. Oz the Mentalist was in the process of trying to guess the name of her unborn child when the shots rang out. And are we ready there, my friend? Yes, no, maybe. Just give me the high sign. That's you I'm talking about. All right, good. Let's go to the White House right now. Yes. Yes, sir. All right, well, she was supposed to be off on maternity leave, but because of everything that's happening, she's there right now. And okay, now we'll pump up the volume for everybody.
United States Secret Service, who acted with the utmost professionalism, courage, and sense of duty. This includes the heroic agent who took a bullet to the chest. Thankfully, he was saved by his bulletproof vest. Minutes after returning here to the White House to the Oval Office, despite fighting Secret Service to try to stay and keep the dinner going on Saturday, ahead of addressing you here in the briefing room, President Trump was intent on speaking to this brave agent to ensure he was okay. And the agent assured the president that he was. As you know, I was seated next to President Trump and the First Lady when the shots were fired before Secret Service swiftly moved us to safety backstage. The president's calm in the face of chaos, while yet another individual was trying to take his life, was really remarkable to witness, and it's something I will never forget. President Trump is fearless because he loves this country, and he is willing to put his own life on the line to deliver on the promises that he made to the American public who elected him here into the highest office in the land. And while we are blessed to have a fearless president, we should not live in a country where such constant fear of political violence permeates our society every single day. We can and we should have fierce disagreement in this country. As you all know, we disagree often, myself in this role and all of you in the news media. But those disagreements must remain peaceful. Debating, peaceful protesting, and voting are how we need to settle disagreements, not bullets. Nobody in recent years has faced more bullets and more violence than President Trump. This political violence stems from a systemic demonization of him and his supporters by commentators, yes, by elected members of the Democrat Party, and even some in the media. This hateful and constant and violent rhetoric directed at President Trump day after day after day for 11 years has helped to legitimize this violence and bring us to this dark moment. Those who constantly falsely label and slander the president as a fascist, as a threat to democracy, and compare him to Hitler to score political points are fueling this kind of violence. The left-wing cult of hatred against the president and all of those who support him and work for him has gotten multiple people hurt and killed, and it almost did so again this weekend. When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, how different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day? The answer, if you're being honest with yourself, is that there is no difference at all. Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many. For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late-night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that. This kind of rhetoric about the president, the First Lady, and his supporters is completely deranged, and it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night. As President Trump said on Saturday night at this podium, we as Americans must recommit ourselves to resolving our differences peacefully and uniting around the shared values that make our country great. The deranged lies and smears against the president, his family, his supporters have led crazy people to believe crazy things, and they are inspired to commit violence because of those words. It has to stop. And one more point. Saturday night served as yet another reminder of how important it is to fund the Department of Homeland Security. It is shameful that the United States Congress has kept this vital agency defunded for 73 days, the longest shutdown of a federal agency in U.S. history. The Secret Service is a vital component of DHS. It has been directly impacted by this reckless political gamesmanship. Everyone in this room who was there on Saturday night witnessed the heroes of Secret Service and federal law enforcement jump into action in the face of grave danger and uncertainty. Agents put their own lives in harm's way to protect the president, the First Lady, the Vice President, and members of the cabinet. One agent can be seen in video footage literally jumping onto the stage, not knowing where the attacker was or where the bullets were coming from at that point, to place his body in front of the President of the United States. These men and women are heroes. They perform their duties daily, and they have children and families too. And they do it despite the political turmoil surrounding their agency. Make no mistake, this defunding of DHS should be a national scandal. If Republicans defunded DHS and we saw another attempted assassination on a Democrat president, I would hope that the media coverage would be relentless and unforgiving, and I hope that it continues to be now. With the World Cup, America 250, the 2028 Olympics, and a presidential election all ahead, the Democrats' obstruction is placing an enormous and totally pointless burden on the Secret Service that can get more people killed. Enough is enough. There should be no further debate about this. Democrats need to do what President Trump has been calling on them to do for 73 days in a row and fund the Department of Homeland Security, period. This is a national emergency, and every member of Congress needs to put their country over party and get the Department of Homeland Security funded. With that, I will take a few of your questions today. Daniel, thank you for being here. Why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Karoline. The president, Saturday after the assassination attempt, came here. He emphasized that law enforcement did their job, keeping everyone safe at dinner. House Speaker Mike Johnson came out and said he believes the president needs greater protection. What is the White House's message to the millions of Americans who wake up here today nervous, uneasy about the safety of the president at events like this and the safety of other cabinet members?
Well, we certainly understand their fears and their worries. As you heard from the president himself, he continues to have trust in the United States Secret Service. As I just said, these are great men and women who are doing their jobs and performing their duties honorably. As we all witnessed on Saturday evening, within minutes, the president, the First Lady, the Vice President, members of the president's cabinet were ushered out of the room. The perpetrator who sought to inflict massive harm, as we all now know with the release of the manifesto on administration officials and the president himself, was stopped at the security perimeter that was set up. He tried to charge through it, as you saw on video, and he was quickly neutralized by Secret Service, and thank God that he was. With that said, obviously, the White House is always asking the tough questions and ensuring the safety of the president. I understand there will be a meeting early this week convened by the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, with top DHS leadership, members of the United States Secret Service, and our own operations team here to ensure the safety and the security of the president, as we do have many of these major events moving forward. So we're always monitoring operations and procedures, always asking the tough questions to ensure the president is safe, and the American people should be assured there's no higher priority for the president and his staff than the president's safety.
Caroline, Friday you said that you thought that gaggle out of the sticks would be your last one for your baby. Back in 2024, when the president had the attempt on his life in Butler, you cut your maternity leave short back then. You're obviously back here today after Saturday.
Barely hear this guy.
Can you just elaborate a little bit why you felt it was important?
Oh, she's pregnant. Why are you still working?
Sure. It's sort of crazy timing when you put it that way for both children with 2 assassination attempts against the president. I'm honored to work in this job. I view this job as the president's spokesperson and the White House spokeswoman as public service. It's not just any job. I'm honored to do it, and I'm honored to work and speak on behalf of President Trump, who has faced unprecedented adversity and challenges, and I'm honored to work for him. And again, as I witnessed on Saturday night, just his dogged resolve and determination to get back onto the stage, and he was pushing Secret Service and law enforcement to allow him to address. And that really, I think, hopefully gives the country the type of strength that we need. And I certainly know, as his spokeswoman, and I can speak on behalf of all of the staff here at the White House, the president inspires all of us to just keep going and keep fighting every day. Thanks, Daniel. And congrats to you on your new baby. He's beautiful. Aisha.
Just on the rhetoric, you mentioned the First Lady and Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel's comments were, Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow. And he said this days before the shooting. But there does seem to be a normalization of rhetoric about assassinating this particular president. How can this administration try to put an end to this?
Well, I think you heard it directly from the president on Saturday night, Aisha, that in his words, we need to recommit ourselves as a country to toning down the rhetoric and to unifying around what makes our country great. That's true of everyone who works in this White House, but as I said, it's also true of everyone who has a voice and a platform across this country, whether you're on television, a podcast host, people listen. And when you have mentally disturbed individuals across the country who are listening to this crazed rhetoric about the president day after day after day, it inspires them to do crazy things. And unfortunately, it's not just the media, it is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist, and that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it. I have a whole host of examples that we can share with you after. It is pages and pages of major Democrat Party elected officials saying, such as Rep. Hakeem Jeffries just this month said, we are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere all the time. Governor Josh Shapiro said heads need to roll within the administration. Senator Alex Padilla said people are, quote, dying because of fear and terror caused by the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, President Trump is making the country look like a, quote, fascist state. Senator Adam Schiff saying President Trump using a dictator playbook. Senator Ed Markey calling President Trump a dictator, saying that this administration's actions are authoritarianism on steroids. Governor J.B. Pritzker, never before in my life have I called for mass protest disruptions. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. You have Rep. Presley saying, we'll see you in the streets. Rep. Monica McIver, a Democrat representative on Capitol Hill, we will not take this shit from Donald Trump. He thinks he's a dictator. We are at war. These are Democrat elected officials calling for war against the President of the United States and his supporters. I could go on and on, but again, when you have people in positions of power that are saying things like this every single day for years, you are inspiring violence by people who are already mentally ill. And that's what we've seen against this president for far too long.
This is disinformation and misinformation online. There will be bite-sized clips that will go viral to the point where there are Americans in this country that believe that what happened Saturday night was staged. How does this White House tackle that with social media companies out there, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram? How do they work with these companies to make sure that doesn't get out of control?
It's certainly a good question, Aisha. I don't have tangible answers for you on what we're doing with social media companies, if anything at all. What I will say is it's very important to us that we get the truth and the facts about this case and any case out there as quickly as possible to dispel some of that crazy nonsense that you do see running rampant online. And I think the Department of Justice and the FBI thus far have done a good job of disseminating the truth and the facts about this alleged attempted assassin, the perpetrator in this case. And I understand he'll be arraigned in court very soon. You all see that. And the Department of Justice will be giving a briefing and an update later today. So as far as we're concerned, just providing maximum transparency and hopefully people will believe the truth rather than the lies and the conspiracies that so often do go crazy on social media.
Caroline.
Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Does the administration view this as a security failure, or did the protocols work as they were designed?
The president has said he believes that the protocols worked. Again, you had a perpetrator who tried to breach the security parameter that was set up by Secret Service, and he He was running as fast as he could and was immediately neutralized moments later. And again, having been right up there on the stage with the president and the first lady, I can tell you it was seconds before we were told to get down, and it was seconds before we found ourselves in the hold room backstage. It all happened literally within a matter of seconds.
Too many.
The president, the vice president, and the first lady being pulled to safety. That is not done if there's a lapse. So Secret Service did their jobs well. They communicated with one another to remove the president and the vice president to safety as quickly as they could, and obviously to neutralize the shooter as well. And thank God they did, because if that man was allowed into that ballroom, it would have been a much different scene.
All right, we'll be right back with more seconds. No, only 2 seconds for Vance, 15 to 20 for President Trump. No way. Not good enough. Be right back.
Greg Kelly.
Let's go, Brandon.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network. Greg Kelly. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222. Recapping my thoughts on all of this, I'm writing up an actual thing for my Substack, and this is what I have so far, okay? I call it the Participation Trophy for the Secret Service. We all know what a participation trophy is. It's when you give kids... pardon me. A little bit of water in the face. Hello, everybody. This is my book report. I worked on it all morning. And it goes like this. The title is The Participation Trophy for the Secret Service. We all know what a participation trophy is. It's what you give kids when nobody wins. No score, no goalie, no consequences. Everyone did great. Everyone gets something shiny. And the whole point is to make sure no one feels bad. Fine, they're children. But watching the reaction to the attempted assassination of President Trump, you start to see the same instinct showing up in a place where it absolutely does not belong. Before the facts are fully established, before timelines are clear, before anyone has really taken a hard look at what happened, the praise begins. The Federal Bureau of Investigation says the country should rest assured the response was heroic. The United States Secret Service emphasizes that its multi-layered protection works. That language comes early, and it comes often, and it has an effect. It narrows the lane. It sets the tone. It makes serious scrutiny feel premature, even inappropriate. And the press, they follow that tone, not necessarily by repeating the praise word for word, but by operating within it. This is not an area where journalists rush to challenge federal law enforcement in real time. It is far more common to defer, to wait, to repeat what has been said. That restraint is worth noticing, everybody, because we have all seen something very different in other situations. When a failure of law enforcement fits a certain narrative, say a young black man, right? The questions are hard, but not now. More when I come back.
Greg Kelly on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So I think this is very important right now. Dick Cheney has told this story many, many times. It didn't take me long to find a fairly recent example. When did he die? Was that last year sometime? I think this is shortly before his death. He's talking to the American, what the hell is this? The Heritage? AEI, American Enterprise Institute. And this is a story they like to tell, you know? I mean, I'm so important that the Secret Service made me do something, right? They forced me to do something. I had no choice in the matter. And why is it that they kind of like, I don't know, drag their feet when it's President Trump? Are you ready here? All right. No, yeah, we're working on it. He tells this story about how they came into his office and just grabbed him. Now, something else that's kind of interesting about Dick Cheney on 9/11. I'm sorry. Do you have it? No? Oh, shoot. All right. I apologize. On 9/11, he actually says something, or does something that is peculiar to this day. He's watching the World Trade Center on fire, and he's watching it on TV. And I know what it's like to watch TV. You know what it's like to watch TV. You know what he's doing? You know what's the weird part? He's at work, okay? He's at work in the vice president's office, right? It's a pretty important place. And he's got his feet up on his desk. He's got his feet up on his desk. Not only his desk, it's more like on the TV table. He is sitting comfortably in a chair, watching the World Trade Center on fire. And he's got his feet up on his desk, like he's watching football. Like he's just watching the news. His mouth isn't agape. He isn't shocked. I mean, he isn't even focused. It's like he's going around the dial and he's watching soccer and he doesn't like soccer. It's just the most amazing thing to me. Go ahead and roll it, please. Okay. This is Dick Cheney telling that story.
9/11. I would be interested to know when you first knew we were under attack. Not when you first heard about it, but when did you know we were under attack, and what were your very first thoughts at that moment?
Well, I was in my office in the West Wing working with my speechwriter when my secretary called in to report that a plane had struck the World Trade Center in New York. We turned on the television, and this was after the first plane had gone in, but before anything else had happened. And immediate reaction was to think, how is this possible? This is a really weird accident. Perfectly clear weather. There was no way to account for it. And then as we watched, we saw the second plane hit. And that immediately, in my mind, triggered the notion that this had to be a terrorist attack. Couldn't have two airliners fly into the World Trade Center within minutes of each other and not have it be anything but a terrorist attack. Shortly after that, I talked to the president down in Florida, and we talked about a statement. He was getting ready to issue a statement, and that was whether or not it was proper to talk about terrorism within that context of that statement, and we both agreed it definitely was. And I believe the words he used was probably a terrorist attack on the United States. Within a relatively short period of time, people began to gather in my office. Secretary Rice, then
is this breaking up on you too?
Was there?
Good. No.
Scooter
Okay.
Libby, my chief of staff. We probably had 7 or 8 people in the room, and then all of a sudden the door burst open, and my lead Secret Service agent came in and came over to the desk where I was sitting, and he said, "Sir, we have to leave immediately." Say, I'd like to take you out, or please come with me. He said, "We have to leave immediately." Put one hand on the back of my belt and one hand on my shoulder, and literally propelled me out of my office. I didn't have the option of not going where I wanted to go. And the cause for that, the reason he'd done that, is he explained to me as he was taking me down to the Presidential Emergency Operations Center under the White House, was that he'd received a report over the Secret Service radio net that there was a hijacked aircraft out at Dulles headed towards Crown at 500 miles an hour, Crown being the code word for the White House. And that turned out to be American 77, which of course came in and made a circle and then went into the Pentagon. At that point, I was down in partway to the PIAC.
So they grabbed him, no conversation, right? They just grabbed him by the belt, That didn't happen to President Trump, and it doesn't happen to President Trump, right? They let him get his shoes on, right? Remember that? I love President Trump, but, the whole notion is the president, actually doesn't call the shots in a situation like that. That it's that important. We can't necessarily, the Secret Service, they have to move, not think. And they were just thinking about it. They were just thinking about, maybe we'll nudge him along. No. They failed him, man. They failed him again. And he's in a tough spot to say that, but I'm not. I'm not. Now, I told you about the press. Part of it is that the tough questions are not really going to be there because, well, if the victim weren't a president they despise, there would be questions. They feel very bold to question law enforcement if the victim is young and a person of color. But if it's a powerful, older, white president, we're going to have to defer to law enforcement on this one, I think. Now, let me pick up that essay I was reading. When a failure of law enforcement fits a certain narrative, when the victim is young and black, the scrutiny is immediate, aggressive, and sustained. The press leans in. It assumes failure. It demands answers from the first hour. The instinct is far less visible here, and it is not unreasonable to ask why. The result is obvious. Reassurance replaces analysis before we even understand what happened. And here we are, handing out a participation trophy for adults, and this time it's the Secret Service. No one should be impressed with what they saw that night, and starting with the evacuation of the stage. Vice President Vance was off the stage while President Trump was still in his chair. It's incredible. Karen Travers was under the table. Oz the Mentalist was under the table. People with no responsibility for the presidency were already clear while the President of the United States remained seated in full view. Now, that's not a little interesting detail. That is the essence of the problem. Now, President Trump has since said that part of the delay was because of him, that he wanted to see what was happening, and that's fine. But that's not how it's supposed to work. The protectee doesn't decide when it's time to leave or move. That's the job, that's the responsibility, and that's the standard. Now, you just heard what Dick Cheney talked about there, right? Which is really amazing. They don't advise you we're thinking about leaving. They don't ask for permission. They grab you. We didn't see it on Saturday night, and we didn't see it in Butler. Shots were fired. The president paused to retrieve his shoes. The moment was widely criticized afterward, but not really. Not really. Even by people on my side. You know why? Because it was such an awesome photo. With his hand in the air like that. It was awesome. I loved it. So you don't, if they moved him right off the stage, maybe he wouldn't have looked as brave or something like that. What exactly is the rule here? Do they move you, no questions asked, or do they wait for you? Does it depend on the moment or the man? I think there got to be answers to that question. Now let's set aside for a moment all of that, because there was something even more basic, right? Something everyone understands, whether you have a badge or not, whether you get briefed on security or not. You could be just a regular person. Anybody knows this. Anybody. Checkpoints are a part of daily life. Checkpoints. Office buildings, airports, concerts, government facilities, right? Hell, just the DMV. We line up, we empty our pockets, we get screened, we get waved through or stopped. Now, the VIPs glide past them, but we the people do not. A checkpoint is not abstract. It's not like some idea. It is a point, a literal point where something is supposed to happen. You stop, you are checked, and you either get to pass or you don't. The equipment is there. People are engaged. There is no ambiguity about whether it is functioning or not. Now, which is why the phrase we keep hearing, the shooter charged the checkpoint, the shooter charged the checkpoint, the shooter charged the checkpoint, that is too generous. Because what we saw outside that ballroom was not a checkpoint. It was a group of uniformed individuals standing around while the centerpiece of screening equipment, the metal detector, was on the ground in pieces, being taken apart like roadies stripping down equipment after a Billy Joel concert. Except this was not the end of the night. The night had actually barely begun. This was the moment when that checkpoint should have been at its most active and not disappearing. So, what was being checked and where and when? The officers closest to where the suspect appears were not in an alert posture. There was no crowd to scan, but that only makes posture more important, not less. Head should be up, eyes moving, attention outward. Instead, what you saw was something relaxed, casual, familiar. Hey, Bob, what's going on, man? We all recognize it. We've all lived it, right? We know. We've all been there. Once the bulk of our work is done, we can relax a little bit. The job softens. The conversation drifts. Work, weekends, sports. Who's dating who? It's not malicious. This is just what human beings do. In the office, maybe on the factory floor. But this is not life at the office, and this is not a factory. This is protecting the most important person in the world. And that was not a checkpoint. What you had was something that looked official, sounded official, was described as official, but was not functioning that way at all. You cannot charge a checkpoint that does not exist. You cannot defeat a system that, in that moment, is not actually operating. What happened there was not a dramatic collapse. It was something quieter and more revealing. The moment the job is treated like it's basically over when it is just beginning. You know what happened a long time ago? Airplanes. Airplanes used to crash a lot more than they do today. And one of the reasons why they crash is moments, a lot like those guys at the Hilton Hotel. Cockpit voice recorders captured pilots talking about everything, sports, politics, dating, cars, during critical flight operations. This doesn't make them reckless. This just made them human. The attention drifts. Before Air Florida crashed into the bridge, 14th Street Bridge, 1982, they were laughing and giggling about who's dating who, and one of the pilots was dating one of the flight attendants. He. People taking their mind off the job. That is why the Federal Aviation Administration imposed what is known as the sterile cockpit rule, prohibiting non-essential conversation during critical phases of flight after investigators linked distraction to fatal mistakes. Now, we have to apply that here. When a protectee is present, security is on, period. No talk about weekends, no sports, no overtime, no gossip, nothing that is not the job at hand. I remember personally myself, I interviewed President Bill Clinton. This is all the way back in the year 2000, one of my earliest jobs, and I'm waiting for it. And I asked one of the agents, I assume he was a Secret Service agent, hey, do you know Brian Smith? He gave me a tour. The response, when I asked this guy this question, came back instantly, loud and flat. No. End of conversation. I was totally embarrassed, right? But then I understood, why should he be chit-chatting with me? I kind of had the feeling that he knew the guy anyway. There's no way he didn't know the guy. No, I'm not here to talk to you. He is guarding the most important man in the world. Anything can happen at any time. That was the mindset that I observed. That's not the mindset that exists now. All right. I've got more to say about this, actually. I do have to take a quick break. And it's really a fascinating moment. A lot of things are coming together. I want to know also, did the Secret Service evaluate everybody who was staying in that hotel? Now, there are people in that hotel who had nothing to do with the White House Correspondents' Dinner, including Cole Allen, the would-be assassin. He was staying there, checked in the night before. Oh, well, we're going to keep those people, the non-White House people, away from the event? What if he snuck a gosh damn bomb into the place? You could sneak a bomb that could blow up the entire hotel. The wellness company, everybody. If you're heading into summer without a medical emergency kit, you're taking a risk. Most people don't think about it until it's too late. Summer colds linger and can turn into sinus infections that last for weeks. How about me? The air conditioner kind of messes me up. I get sick off the air conditioner sometimes. Getting sick right before vacation can derail everything. And when you're traveling, finding a doctor and pharmacy is stressful. And that's why I ordered a medical kit. All right. I love this thing. It's like having urgent care and a pharmacy right there at home. It includes essential prescriptions like amoxicillin and generic Z-Packs to treat a wide range of common and serious illnesses. So if you wake up sick at home or on the road, you already have what you need. No waiting for your doctor, no hours at urgent care, no pharmacy lines, no copays. Just match your symptoms to the right prescription in your guidebook or call their telemedicine doctor standing by. Start on your meds sooner and feel better faster. Every home needs at least one medical emergency kit. Order yours online in minutes and it's shipped to your door and save $45, $45 with my promo code Greg at urgentcarekit.com/Greg. urgentcarekit.com/Greg. That's promo code Greg at urgentcarekit.com/Greg.
Greg Kelly.
Let's go, Brandon.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network. Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, I'm back. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. I'm going to go through this a little bit more. I'm almost done with my essay. You know, when I write something, it takes a great deal of effort, but I usually am met with success. I get it published, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. I've been published in the Daily News. Interestingly, sometimes, and it's a pain in the neck, by the way. It takes a hell of a lot of effort. Hours and hours and hours. And in my opinion, ChatGPT AI causes more problems than it solves. It doesn't. It's like no, ChatGPT can't do the work for you. It's I wish it would, but it doesn't. It does so much work. At least for me. Some people just, right? It's done. No, I slave over this stuff. So, did I tell you about the yeah, I did. I tell you about the cockpit voice recorders. Okay. Now, I'm going to wrap this piece up, and here's how it goes. And I think I may have to do another draft. I want to go back to Butler. The most basic questions were not even asked. The most obvious failures, the speed of the evacuation, how long it took to get the president off the stage, how long it took him to get into the vehicle, how slowly that vehicle moved once he was inside. Those questions should have dominated the conversation. They did not. They weren't even asked. They were not even asked. I followed everything about that story. What came first was sympathy and reassurance, emphasis on how difficult the job is, how hard this is on the agents, how they are taking it, morale. All of that may be true, but it came first, before accountability, before clarity, before answers. Now, President Trump has expressed confidence in the Secret Service, and I understand that. He works with them. He depends on them. He is not in a position to publicly dismantle the people responsible for his safety. But guess what, folks? He is not the client. He is not the client. We are. We pay for this. We rely on it. And we are being told very quickly that everything worked out. The questions here are not obscure. They are obvious. They may be uncomfortable for federal law enforcement, but that is not the public's problem. The public can handle the truth. We cannot afford this reassurance in place of clarity. There are answers to the questions. All right. There are answers to these questions. They have to be asked, not just me saying them out loud. What we saw on Saturday night was not just a failure. It was a warning about how the system operates when it matters the most. If that is the level we are operating at, then the risk is not hypothetical anymore. It is real, and immediate drastic change is not optional. It is mandatory, and it has to happen now. Now, I don't want the president leaving that White House until I don't know what the solution is. I wish I did. Part of me wants to turn over all Secret Service functions to the all Secret Service functions to the military immediately. Now, that's going to present all kinds of problems right there. Everything you do is going to present problems. Now, one thing, all right, if you work at the Secret Service and you're a uniformed, and by the way, think about this for any job in the world, any job. You, whether you're a teacher, a doctor, sanitation, you work at the gas station, anybody, when you're at work and somebody's paying you, you owe the employer every bit of your attention, every single bit of your attention, every minuscule moment. You are utilizing it for the mission. Put those phones away, all right? They have so precious little of our time anyway.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?